Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 95. My name is Victor Vasquez. Appreciate you joining me on another discussion, another journey where we watch a movie either on streaming or in theaters. We check it out, we break it down on this podcast, and then we decide at the end, is it timeless? Is it something that you would add to your collection of movies that you would want to check out? Before we jump into episode number 95, though, did want to put up a link here for those on YouTube. I am putting a link for episode number 94, where I ended up talking about a movie that I really kind of caught me off guard as I watched it, and that was Conclave. Definitely go check it out. Put some comments down below if you've seen that movie in regards to Ralph Fiennes and really the whole decision of who's going to be the next pope. Really fun movie. Definitely go ahead and check that one out and let me know if you thought it was timeless. For this week's episode, though, we're going to be covering a new movie, but before we do that, I'm not by myself. You already know it. It is the 5th episode. Every 5, we have a.k.a. Mr. Ohm, a.k.a. the Hat Collector.
Quick.
A.k.a. Mr. Every 5, Omar Vasquez. Omar, how's it going, man?
It's going good. I think quicker, though. I think I just need to be like, Omar's here.
That's not good enough for me. Omar, appreciate you joining me again, man. We are going to be talking about the movie by Scott Beck and Brian Woods, and it is called Heretic. I practiced it a couple times with Omar because I didn't want to say it wrong. I've been saying it in a different way, like hereditary, heretic, but it's Heretic. That's the movie we're covering today. Omar, we're on fire with horror movies, and we still have a couple that we haven't seen, but we've seen a lot of horror movies so far this year.
Yeah. How do you feel about that?
I mean, to me, it feels good because I'm expanding my movies of genres, not sticking to only action. that's typically, like, action is my number one. How about you? How do you feel like that? Is it like
I mean, I feel good.
I love it.
Like, even though, like, I do like these type of movies.
Yeah.
Not common to watch them in the theaters.
True. I feel like we've watched more horror movies, like, at the house like that or, like, anything of that nature more commonly.
But you know what? Like I feel like the genres that are best enjoyed with a group of people are like horror and comedy.
Yep.
I feel like it's gonna be more fun when there's like a group of people.
And you can see the difference too. Like when you watch like a scary movie at your house, like it might not have the same impact as compared to like when like 30 or 50 people are like screaming at the same time.
Yeah, they all
like,
feel the same as you. They all feel like as tense and nervous.
Yeah. Well, again, me and Omar got to check out Heretic opening night. Before we jump into our kind of non-spoiler thoughts, I did want to say like a very weird experience that me and Omar had. Omar and I have been going to like a bunch of movies this year. I think we've already hit like 40 movies so far in 2024. And I think this is one of like the weirdest times where we got to our seats and the movie started and all of a sudden you hear this clipping sound. We're at a point where I think Omar and I thought that it was part of the movie in regards to like how there was like a clipping sound on the speakers, and then AMC folks came, they stopped the movie, and then they started up again and it still wasn't working. And then as they get the movie to start working with the right audio, all of a sudden, all of our Dolby Cinema seats start moving. And it's just like, they just vibrated like the entire time. No lie, lasted like about 10 to 15 minutes. It was such a I've never had that.
It was weird. People were thinking it was part of the show because it was something. It was strange. Like the clipping of the speakers. At first I was like, oh, this is a mistake. But then I was like, no, wait, this is part of the movie.
Yeah.
But then a few minutes later, I was like, no, this is not right. You couldn't tell.
Yeah.
And then the seats start shaking, and people are saying, earthquake. No, it wasn't. But you couldn't tell either. It was a weird experience. And then you remember, like, the seats started shaking a lot, and there's no sound because they're trying to fix it.
Yep.
But then it comes back.
Yeah.
But it's like,
it was
scary.
And then like I got worried too because like when it came back for like a couple minutes, I was like, no, please, like it's because it was really distracting. Like the first 10 minutes of like trying to get back into the movie, knowing that like okay, like is this really part of the experience or not? And so it was insane. Like that probably was one of the weirdest like theater experiences. We got a free ticket out of it though. So, I mean...
Which is useless to us.
Because we're A-listers. So,
we got nothing out of this.
Exactly. But we did get to check out Heretic. So, I was about to say it again. I was about to say...
No, that's a good transition.
Yeah. We got to check out Heretic. And so, let's go ahead and dive in to some of our non-spoiler thoughts. Mr. Om, I'll start. Feel free to add in any detail. Me and Omar have not talked about it. I know I repeat it every time he comes on, but we we try not to talk about the movie that we saw. So I'll start it off. Mr. Holm, I thought Heretic was a good movie. I really enjoyed the ways that the kind of movie made me feel uneasy at certain points. I think a lot of that was just because of like the camera angles and like the shots of like what they were trying to set up. If there was like one thing that I would probably recommend, like if people wanted to check this out, the main thing, the highlight that I left after we left the theaters was the performances of the three main characters. Every character was like so unique. They all played off of each other very well, and I really enjoyed every single one. I think what I appreciate is that they're all so different. Like one was very talkative, one was very charming, the other one like had like a very mysterious past, and so you didn't really know like what to make of it. But I really enjoyed like those performances. So that would kind of be like the biggest highlight for me. If I would say that why I wouldn't consider it great as compared to maybe other horror movies that we've seen so far, I gotta say that there's probably just like a lot of things that they were setting up, and like a lot of just different in regards to like theories and a lot of dialogue. And I don't mind a lot of dialogue. I like when characters talk just because I like to talk, kind of like I'm doing now. But I don't know, I felt like maybe some people might get kind of taken away. It's just like there's a lot that's being thrown at you in regards to like what they're trying to set up and tell you in the movie. So that's probably one thing. But again, to me, it's interesting because it's concepts that are like very like bigger than us, very kind of philosophical in a way. So again, that's probably the only thing that kind of stops it from being great for me. But those are kind of just the overall thoughts that I have. Mr. Rome, we haven't talked about it, but what do you think? Like any kind of differences from what I've said about like what I've liked about it and maybe didn't like about it?
No. And I guess once we start talking about the pros and cons,
yeah,
I think we'll get more like into it.
Cool.
But I agree with you. Like, I guess once we get to the pros and cons, I'll say what, because I liked though. There's a lot of twists and turns, and for me, that's like a pro.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also like some downside to that, I guess. So I'll talk about later.
Yeah.
But overall, I think we're on the same page.
Yeah, you liked it and you enjoyed it.
I did like it.
Cool. Before we jump into more of like the spoiler items that we have about pros and cons, a little bit of synopsis for people that just kind of want to be aware as to what the movie's about. This film basically revolves around Sister Paxton and Sister Barnes. They are two Mormon missionaries. They try to go and speak to folks that want to know more about the Mormon faith. And so, they're trying to talk to different people on the street, trying to go house to house. And again, you got to kind of just see that throughout the first 5 to 10 minutes. And then they eventually get a text message saying that, hey, there's a person that is interested. Here's their address. They go to that individual's address, and it ends up being Mr. Reed. And so you get to see all three characters kind of interact. And then you kind of see that Mr. Reed seems like a very nice and friendly person, invites them into their house. And then he seems to know a lot about all the religions, not only just about Mormons, but about every kind of religion that is on earth. And soon you get to see the very nice kind of tone shift where you start realizing that this guy is just not what he seems. There's something fishy going on, and then you realize that they're basically are now trapped in his home, and they're going to get their faith tested in various different ways. And that's kind of how the story unravels. Again, I'm not going to spoil too much of the twists and turns, but that's kind of the initial concept of the movie. And that's kind of what got me very interested in watching it, is like, okay, yeah, you have two people that are very devoted to their religion. What are they going to do when they actually get put to the test by somebody that's crazy? That's somebody that's just insane and then kind of like a psychopath in a way. So that's kind of the overall thought of the movie. Omar, one thing I wanted to say is that overall, I kind of felt like it was almost like a social experiment. Like you're watching somebody kind of test these two individuals and kind of figure out like what their decisions are going to be. I don't know if you've ever seen anything on Netflix of these like social experiment type of shows where like, oh, we're going to try to push this person to do something that they shouldn't do. Like there's like a few of them on Netflix.
Reality?
The reality. Like they look for and they search and interview people that are very compliant, and they eventually push them like to do things that like you would not expect. Like one of them was like, can we convince this person to push somebody off of a building, like because of some kind of a situation that ends up getting set up? And it's really ridiculous.
I've never even heard of that before.
Yeah, I didn't hear about it either until a friend recommended it to me. I didn't really like it because I don't like being aware of like a social experiment that's being taken on you. But in this case of the movie, it kind of felt like that. And so, but it's very interesting because it's like thriller, experiment, horror. So it kind of blends very well. So again, overall, it sounds like me and Omar are on the same page. We liked it. Mr. Om, I guess question for this one. Would you recommend somebody go to the theaters and watch this one? Because I was on the fence. I was on the fence in that I enjoyed it, but there wasn't a lot of jump scares like from a horror movie perspective. This is more of like a setup of like something that makes you feel very uneasy. So I don't feel like the theater experience would really add a lot to it. But it goes back to what we were talking about before about horror movies are meant to be watched with other people. It's like a social experience. But what do you feel like? Would you recommend it? Like, yeah, go check it out in theaters or wait for streaming?
Like you said, jump scares. I personally don't even like jump scares in movies. So would I recommend this for a theater? Yeah, I would actually. For sure I would. Because there were funny aspects to the movie. There were a lot of funny scenes.
Yeah.
And like I said, like comedy and horror are easily enjoyed like together with people. And so like when the funny things would come up or like when the tense things would come up, I enjoyed that feeling of like being in a room with a bunch of people and we're all feeling the same thing. Either that build up of tension and that release feels good.
Yeah.
Whether it's a joke or whether it's something scary.
Yeah.
So I would recommend this.
Nice. Yeah, I would still recommend it. I probably would. I'm on the fence. I kind of would lean for streaming just because, again, like for me, like when I think about horror, like I would want there to be kind of moments where like the speakers or like the way that the screen is just kind of getting your full focus. Like there's moments that like totally capture you. But I think this one, again, because of like the way that they're setting up different aspects of like tension, it's like I don't think it would be that big of a difference. So like that's why I would probably recommend like you don't have to check it out in theaters, but
yeah, like there's definitely no like benefit like speaker wise or like screen wise. Like you're not gonna get anything different more out of it than watching it at home.
Good call.
So that makes sense.
Okay, sweet. Mr. Rome, I think this is a good transition. Let's go ahead and start kind of spoiling some of the things that we liked and didn't like about the movie. So again, if you guys have not seen Heretic, please jump out, come back in, and hear what me and Omar have to say, whether you agree or disagree. Again, it'll be a really good discussion about it. So hopefully that gives you enough time. Mr. Rome, let's dive into it. Pros first, then we'll jump into cons. I'll let you go first. What's one pro that you left the theater like, yeah, this is like something that I really enjoyed?
I think the buildup of the tension is like one of the best I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of gonna spoil my cons right now.
Yeah. Let's go for it.
The whole first half of the movie for me is perfect. Like that's right down that. Like that's exactly what I wanted. Kind of what you saw in the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
Like the trailer was really good because
Yeah.
it made me very excited for this movie. I was like, oh man, this movie looks so good, and it made me really wonder what's behind these doors or what are they gonna choose.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole first half of the movie before they enter the two doors is, for me, it's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
The way they build tension and the way they make it feel scary and they release some of the tension with jokes. Everything works for me. So I just love the whole first half.
I completely agree with you, Mr. Orm. One of my pros was the feeling of tension through camera shots and angles. Like when Omar was describing, like when the sister Paxton and sister Barnes, who like are played by Chloe East and Sophie Thatcher, respectively, when they go into Mr. Reed's house, who's played by Hugh Grant, there's these camera shots where they have to go through like a dark hallway, and he tells them like, feel free to come in when you're ready. And like you just see this camera shot where like you could see it from their shoulders through the dark hall, and it just looks ominous. And like that setting up of tension is like, okay, something is like wrong here. Then when they go through the hall, Omar, do you remember when there's like a figure that they see, and then you're like, as an audience member, you're like, holy crap, like what the hell is that? Like, is that Mrs. Reed? Is that another type of a being? And then they get closer and it's a statue. And it's like, that was like how they pulled off those angles and camera shots to set you up of like, oh, you think it's something scary? It isn't. Don't worry about it like that. There's other things like that like just set you up in that way that I thought worked really well.
And that's why I feel like sometimes jump scares are like, they cheapen the tension, or they cheapen the movie a little bit. Because like, let's say if we watch a different horror movie, once you see, like maybe once they come up to the statue, there'd be like a loud noise.
Yep.
Then that releases all the tension. So now you're kind of at ease. I feel like it's better if no jump scare, nothing, and then you keep building up the tension. You know, there's no release yet. And
keep the audience guessing as to when it's going to be released in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Omar, including in my camera shots and angles that I was mentioning, I wanted to kind of transition into, did you like the shots when the camera would circle around the room and kind of you could see all three characters at once? Like, did you notice that? Like, they would do that, like, either when one of the characters was moving a candle and you could just see the camera move like this. And then there was another one where like they're in Mr. Reed's office and then he's explaining something and then explaining the two doors of like which way you're going to go. And the camera just basically pans all over them. I was like, that's dope. Like, I love when you can have the camera just feel like it's all over the room, no matter where it is, and it doesn't get blocked by anything. It's just like, it just looks super sleek.
Yeah, good camera work.
Yeah. Mr. Rome, any other pro on your side?
You already mentioned earlier, but obviously, I think you're going to have this too, the performances.
Yes.
Dude,
I did have it.
They were all really, really good.
I mean, Sister Paxton, who's Chloe East, she's the one that was like the talkative one. And Omar knows this. I always tend to go towards the characters that I like because they talk a lot and they're always very energetic. She was that character.
She was like the naive one.
Yes.
Right.
She was the one that was like she fully like believed like that, but she was also compliant because there was a scene where she was like, she was already freaked out by Mr. Reed, and she's like, let's just go to disbelief. It's fine like that, and like
yeah, just like pandering to what he's guiding her towards.
Yeah. What other like did you like enjoy of like those interactions? Because like again, like I really enjoyed that, and I kind of mentioned this on the non-spoiler thoughts, but I really enjoyed that each one was very different. Like you mentioned, Sister Paxton was like naive. You had Sister Barnes, who was more like, it seemed like the movie was setting up like she has like a very dark past or like a very different past, like because she wouldn't explain a lot and she wouldn't really want to delve into a lot. And then you have Mr. Reed, who's like just looking at him like that and just seeing how he talks to them, very nice, very charming, but you know
instantly you could tell he's like it's like a fake charm or like a fake nice.
Exactly.
Which makes it really creepy, you know?
Yeah. I would also throw out there, Mr. Rome, for performances. Really enjoyed how the looks that they gave when they were like freaking out. Like they felt like they were frozen, and it was all because of like what Mr. Reed was like explaining to them, and then like the looks that they would give like that, like of twitches, and dude, it was really
they were really good. And you know what I liked about Hugh Grant's character? Is that he was never like outright evil or outright a villain, like, yes, oh, you're trapped here forever and I'm gonna kill you or whatever. He was always everything he would say, he would set it up like as if they still had their free will, or like if they could leave whenever they want, nothing's wrong. And that was just like such an interesting choice, you know?
Even almost to like a certain point where like it almost feels like he's on their side in a way still. Like,
right, exactly. Like,
hey,
almost like he's comforting.
Exactly. Yeah, like don't get worried about this decision like that. Like almost always on their side, making them feel like everything's okay.
Yeah, it was weird, which added to the experience.
Yeah. And weird is a good way to kind of describe this movie, right? Like kind of feels weird, uneasy, like that. Just of like the topics that are going,
which is good because that's what they're going for.
Awkward in a way too. So. Mr. Rome, anything else of the performances? Again, that was my third one. Interactions, performances of all three characters was great. Anything else on that side?
On the performances, no. I also liked the limited setting and the limited characters.
Yes.
I feel like when movies limit their settings and their characters, I think it opens the door for more like creativity. So I was happy when I realized it wasn't going to be anywhere other than the house.
Yes.
But there was that one scene where they go to a church. I was a little worried right there. I was like, oh no, don't make it go somewhere else.
You're talking about when they started looking at the elder, who was like kind of like, okay, he's going to start checking up on them because they never came back and signed in.
And I'm happy they didn't focus too much on that.
Well, Omar, I'm going to go off on a little tangent here. Did you know who the elder Kennedy was?
It really reminded me of Eric from That 70s Show, but I don't think it was him.
Topher Grace is Elder Kennedy.
Oh.
When I saw him in the movie, I didn't know that was him. And then when I saw the cast and I saw Topher Grace, and then I looked, even me thinking back after watching the movie, I couldn't picture his face. Like, I don't know if it was because of the hair.
Yeah, his face didn't really look like him, but I could kind of tell from his voice, kind of the way he was talking.
And I couldn't picture that. Like, I couldn't remember the sound of was it Eric from That 70s Show? and I couldn't picture it until I saw the cast and I was like,
that's crazy.
Wow. I couldn't believe that. But just wanted to throw that out there if you knew, but it seems like you already kind of picked it up when you were watching it.
But I didn't know if it really was him. That's cool.
Mr. Rome, only other pro that I have besides the camera shots, besides performances, was and I kind of tease this a little bit, the social experiment feeling. Again, I don't really like seeing it in real life shows like that in reality, but for some reason in this movie feeling, it was such like a very awkward feeling because it immediately starts with with Hugh Grant's character Mr. Reed asking them very awkward questions like that.
Right.
Like, what do you think about a man having multiple wives? What happened to your father like that? And things of that were just very intrusive in a way, and it kind of just starts changing the tone little by little. But then also what I love the social experiment piece of it is him writing things down, him writing things of that, hey, here's when the resurrection happened. and then trying to convince them like I just showed you a resurrection. What do you think? And like, or like, and then kind of going through like, what's the one true religion like that? And like how each one is a copy of a different version like that. Going through the Monopoly scene, I think, which is a great one. Like that, it kind of shows you like just simplifying it very like easily for the audience, but I think it still represents like, yeah, like, hey, look, everything is just a copy of everything else. And so all the stuff of him just writing things down, watching them, carving things and making it in his little miniature house and maze like that, like it was I enjoyed that aspect of it, and just again making it creepy, making it awkward. It just added so much more tension to me when I was watching it. Mr. Rome, any other pros on your side?
No.
Let's move into cons, man. You were alluding to some of the cons, so I'll let you start, and maybe we might have some of the similar ones too.
Maybe this is just my fault.
Okay.
Because like maybe what I created in my head is not what happened in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was disappointed after they went through the doors.
Got it.
The belief or disbelief door.
Yeah.
I feel like that this was the main point of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of a selling point. Do you agree?
I do agree.
Like just from based on the trailer.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that they shouldn't have gone through the doors as quickly as they did, or
No.
you're saying more of like you wanted to see them challenged more?
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be like a series of tests.
Yeah, you're reading my mind, dude.
All right.
That was that. I thought the same thing. I thought, and I know that's not the movie. Like now we're basically saying a different movie, right? But I would have loved the movie to be like really challenge their faith and see like, do you really believe in what you believe in, like that? That's all I thought he was gonna do. Where like you mentioned, after they go through the door, there's different levels that they're gonna have to go through in order to challenge and see like, is your thought process of your faith really like true, or is it all false?
Yeah.
Again, I know that's not the movie that we got, and that's why I kind of feel like it's a nitpick and a con, but I feel like it would have made the movie so much better. Of like, what are you willing to do for your faith like that? Are you willing to give it up, or are you willing to kind of sacrifice everything? And like,
but you see, like I kind of feel like that's what they're setting up with the trailer.
yeah.
So I don't really think that's like that's like on our. That's not really our fault for expecting that.
True.
But it kind of looks like that's what they're going for.
Yeah.
And I guess spoiler alert, it doesn't matter what door they choose.
Exactly.
So that was a little disappointing.
Yeah.
But that's why like my pros was like, what did I say? My pros were like the twists and turns.
Oh, you never went into that. You said that earlier like that, but you said that it was one of the favorite things that you had, like the twists and turns that you were going through the movie.
So like,
but dive into it.
The twists and turns, because like even after they go through the door, like the turns never stop.
Yeah.
There's like something always new coming up, something new, and something you're like, what is going on? Sometimes I was even going like, what is going on? What's happening now?
Yeah.
And that kind of saved the movie for me, because I was disappointed. I was disappointed once they went through the door, but then the twists and turns kind of kept me in the movie.
Yeah.
But they only kept me in for so long. Like,
yeah,
a twist happens and I'm excited again, but then I kind of get like a little bored, and then another twist happens and I'm like, oh, that was cool, but then I kind of get bored again. The movie just fell off for me after they went through the doors.
Yeah.
And the twists helped a little bit, but
it never got you back up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the first half was for me, it was like the peak for me.
I was gonna say, like when Omar described like the first half of the movie being perfect, I agree. Like I think the first act, like of them, the setup is like it works so well. I'm like, man, like okay, I'm invested. I want to know what's behind these doors.
Like,
I want to know what's gonna go on.
And I don't want to spoil the rest of the segments either. But the first half had my favorite shot, my favorite scenes, my favorite everything. But that's my con.
Mr. Rome, this kind of feeds into my con a little bit. I'm going to spoil like basically what Mr. Reed, Hugh Grant's character, what he basically wants to prove is what is the one true religion in a sense, right? He's basically trying to convince them that like, again, every religion is a copy of another one, but there's one more important than everything else. And so spoiler warning again for anybody that has not seen the movie, but Mr. Reed basically proclaims that the one true religion is basically control. Who has control over what? My con, Omar, is that I felt like the reveal of the one true religion was it didn't pack a punch. Like it didn't. And again, this could be my fault. Maybe I was expecting too much. Like I was expecting to be moved in a way of like holy crap, like what? Because again, the setup. What is he trying to test like that? Is he really trying to test their faith, or is he really going to show them through all of the things that he's learned of all these religions? I've actually found one that is basically the inception of this. And so that's what was getting me, like, that's what kept me going. I'm like, okay, what is he gonna show us? And when he showed us like the resurrection and all this stuff, I was like, okay, what is it? And then when we got to that point of like him basically saying control, I was like, okay, yeah, cool. Like I totally get that, but I feel like that could have been like something that we could have figured out. Like, yeah, like I feel like a lot of religions, it makes sense. Like it just didn't pack that punch that I was really hoping for.
And you just hit a mark of what I was gonna say too. I feel like the movie was too literal. It showed too much, like that theme of religion being control. I feel like that could have been that shouldn't have been stated. That should have been us, the audience, figuring it out. Yes. It's control that's driving all of this.
Instead, it's Sister Paxton who's basically just saying like control. She figures it out and then kind of takes you step by step as to like why he's thinking that way.
Yeah, like they literally say it for you, and there's no like. I feel like the movie's too literal.
Yeah, I like that. It's like the parts where you want a movie to be like, oh, show me more rather than telling me. In this case, it's like it's showing you, but it's also telling you at the same time with like more information. I'm like, I didn't need that. So that was the unfortunate part, and that's kind of where the movie kind of like dropped for me a little bit. It's like, that's it. And I was like, again, it goes back to the idea of like, I would have loved it more if like it would have been a test of their faith rather than like, hey, look, I control everything. And when you control everything, you can make people do things that you don't want to do. Again, going back to the social experiment, but it just didn't hit for me. It felt, after that, the movie kind of felt flat. And I'm like, okay, I don't think anything that's going to happen is going to get me back into it. So, Mr. Rome, any other cons on your side?
No, I mean, that's pretty much it.
I got one more.
All right.
I mentioned it a little bit before about dialogue. Again, I appreciate the dialogue, but you have, again, going back to when we were saying about telling the audience, you tell them about a butterfly dream theory. You tell them about simulation theory. You tell them about the control and like all religion. There's like a lot that's being told to the audience, but I feel like some of it is either left into interpretation or it's left just kind of like, oh yeah, it's just left out and not really kind of, it never results to anything, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I feel like, again, this is definitely on my side, just like a nitpick, but again, I like when there's a lot of dialogue. I like when the movie can tell me something, but like Omar stated, I also want to figure it out on my own. So there's like all these things, and I'm like, okay, how is this all going to connect? Butterfly dream, simulation theory, like, okay, religion, like, how is this all going to relate to something? And it kind of doesn't. Like, so I'm like, oh, okay. So I feel like they told us a lot of stuff, didn't really go anywhere. I could probably be missing something. Maybe if I watch other kind of reviews or people breaking it down, maybe there's some other detail, but I didn't catch it. There is one thing that I wanted to tell you, Mr. Ohm. Do you remember when they were saying about the butterfly dream where it like a man basically goes to sleep and then he wakes up and he's dreaming of being a butterfly, or is it the opposite? Is it a butterfly dreaming of being a man? What did you think of the end of the movie when it basically ends with Sister Paxton escaping? She finds a way. She has a butterfly on her hand, and then eventually, when she looks back at her hand, the butterfly is gone. What do you take of that? Like, what is your interpretation of that specific ending?
I feel like they leave it up to you to decide what you think. Because there's also another butterfly thing they mentioned, where Sister Paxton saying like if she were to die, she would return as a butterfly and land on the finger of her loved ones, so they know it's her. And so a butterfly lands on her hand. Maybe that could be Sister Barnes, but it disappears.
Yep.
Or like maybe it was never there.
That's what my conclusion was. Like in my interpretation was that I thought that it was either the film telling me in my mind that this reality just wasn't
real?
When it wasn't real, wasn't taking place, or it was like a simulation in some way because the butterfly just magically it doesn't appear anymore on her hand. So then I started again going back. I was like, you were telling me about a butterfly dream. You were telling me about a simulation theory. So like, was that really how it should have ended? Does this butterfly have more meaning than like this movie? Or like, I just didn't get it. So adding that into kind of more of my cons in regards to like what I was trying to figure out.
That wouldn't be a con for me, but yeah, I agree. It's like, it's open to interpretation. So I guess I can't really give it like a con.
It's my fault for interpreting the movie the way that I'm interpreting it, right? Trying to think of it like as something bigger when it probably isn't. Guys, those are our thoughts, pros and cons. There's a lot of things that me and Omar just matched up on, again, really well. Really curious for this next section, though. Favorite performance, favorite moment, and favorite shot. Mr. Rome, I'll let you start. Who was your favorite performance between Sister Paxton, Sister Barnes, or Mr. Reed? Or is it
Wait,
Topher Grace?
Topher Grace?
Scary?
You're not gonna mention him? For me, it's between Sister Paxton and Hugh Grant.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I'm gonna give it to Hugh Grant.
Put it there, man.
Matched up.
Yeah, I put Hugh Grant. I mean, it was super hard because I agree. Sister Paxton really had a great, like, kind of like a turn, like being naive. But then by the end of the movie, when she figured out everything, she was like a completely different character.
Yeah, and the reason I chose Hugh Grant is because even though like Sister Paxton had that like she had a great performance, I feel like her role required more exaggerated reactions.
Yep.
And I feel like that's easier to do, right?
Yeah.
In terms of acting, I don't know. I'm not an actor.
Yeah.
But like Hugh Grant's character had to be scary, but without being scary.
Yep.
And I feel like he pulled it off really, really good.
You said something earlier about Hugh Grant where he's like, he never showed any other type of like emotion that made you feel like he was being sinister or being evil.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the reasons why he's my favorite performance, is because he was at the same time charming, but at the same time you knew that like
Something's off.
This guy is not right in the head. Like he's gonna do something to these sisters, right? That is just gonna be bad. But you never could tell that, and he never had an outburst. He never had any type of like he never raised his tone of his voice. It was always like in a supportive, like, hey, like I'm trying to help you here. Like I'm trying to tell you, like you could leave, and it was just
Like,
I think that's super tough.
Yeah, he was able to recreate like that gut feeling that you have, like in real life.
Yes.
In real life, when you have a gut feeling and you can't really explain why you don't trust somebody or why they creep you out, he was able to do that. And you can't place a finger on what makes him creepy, but he's creepy.
He's creepy.
And that was really good.
Yeah, good stuff. I mean, again, for everybody that we saw, the three main characters, Chloe East, who played Sister Paxton, Sophie Thatcher, who played Sister Barnes, and Hugh Grant, who played Mr. Reed. Again, all three of them, great performances, but me and Omar agree. I think Hugh Grant took this one in our favorite performance. Mr. Rome, favorite moment, scene that calls out to you?
Favorite scene, you mentioned it earlier when he's comparing all the religions and he brings out the Monopoly board.
Yep.
That scene was great for me. And he compares the songs too.
The songs.
Everything. Or like, it was so good because he plays the record while he's explaining what's going on and the record ends. He walks back to the record player. He turns it on again and he's like, have you girls heard the song before? And they're like, you just played it. And they're like, no, this is a different version. And it goes with his story, how religions are all different versions of each other.
Yep.
Dude, that scene was so cool for me.
That was a great scene. And again, going back to like how he's like, his tone is
Yeah.
always just like it's trying to explain to you. I'm trying to teach you something.
Trying to teach you, but you're on
edge.
On edge.
Mr. Rome, my favorite moment was the twist where Mr. Reed actually slices Sister Barnes.
Oh.
I didn't expect that. And that's why it was my favorite scene. I was expecting that like both the Sister Barnes, Sister Paxton characters were going to make it throughout the movie. I did not expect him at that moment of the movie to like just slice her throat and take out a main character. I love it when a movie can take out and like a main character. Well, you're thinking that like everything's going to go well, especially in horror movies when the trope is usually like the naive person is the one that's not going to make it. And the person that has like a very like skeptical, more like like the person that questions is the one that survives. And so I like that they flipped it and they took her out, and she still has a part to play in the end. But at that moment, I was like, did they really just kill her? Like, is it, or like, what the heck is going to happen? So I just appreciated that the movie was able to kind of bamboozle me and kind of like, at that point, even that outburst, Mr. Ohm, Hugh Grant does not show any other kind of like exaggerated emotion.
Yeah.
He's just like, and he's like, oh, don't worry. If everything's fine, if she's able to resurrect like that, and like calmly, every situation that he was a part of just worked. And so that moment caught me off guard, was my favorite scene too.
Nice.
Favorite shot, Mr. Ohm?
Favorite shot?
A lot of great camera angles, a lot of great camera shots.
You know what? I really liked the shots involving the statues. Like even in the trailer they include one, but those are like really good because the lighting is nice. Mm-hmm. The lighting is creepy. Mm-hmm. The statues themselves are creepy. I think there's three that I can remember. One where the two sisters are walking towards the end of the hallway, and then the statue's just back there. Yep. I think that shot is really scary. It was cool. The second one is when Hugh Grant or Mr. Reed's answering the door, and the camera angle is from the point of view of a statue or like behind the statue.
Yes.
Almost like the statue's watching Hugh Grant walk down the hallway.
Or the statue's like a character itself
Yeah.
of like.
I really like that one personally. And that might be my favorite one.
Yeah.
There's also a statue that's hidden behind a curtain. That one, where Sister Paxton keeps looking back, and then there's a close up on the statue behind the curtain, like almost teasing us, like, is that really a statue or is that not a statue?
I love that too. That's the one thing that I forgot to mention on like camera shots and angles is that they show from like Sister Paxton's perspective, like she keeps looking back, and it looks like there's somebody just like with the head down, and you're like, what the hell is that? And then as Omar describes the curtain coming up, and you're like, okay, it's just a statue. And I was like, oh man.
So like any shot with the statue would be my favorite shot in the movie.
Love that.
What about you?
Mine, Omar, first one that came to my mind is the one that kind of stuck to me is when Sister Paxton and Sister Barnes first choose the belief door and they start going down the stairs, and then you just see like the silhouette of Mr. Reed like that, and then they both look back, and then he's like just looking at them from down the stairs. That shot, like even before he gets to Mr. Reed, just seeing his silhouette all blurry as they're going down the stairs, that shot looks just like super creepy like that. For some reason, I always get attracted to these shots where like people are going down a staircase and like you just see one source of light and it just looks freaky. And I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, those are all of our favorite stuff. We try to end it on a positive note. Now it's time for the last segment. Is Heretic timeless? Is it something that you could rewatch over and over again at any point in time just because it kind of hits that kind of a feeling that you're looking for? Mr. Rome, I'll start with you. Is Heretic a timeless movie for you?
No. I would rewatch the first half over and over again.
Yeah.
But the whole movie, like, it has so many twists and turns, but like I feel like that's good enough for the first watch.
Yeah.
And once you know everything that goes down, I don't really think it's a movie I would rewatch over and over again.
I kind of put the same thing. My thought process on this is like Heretic is not a timeless movie for me. Like Omar stated, I think once you know what's going to happen, I mean, in every movie, you kind of know what's going to happen, but I think it's if those reactions that you get like of like emotion of like, oh man, I can't wait for this or I can't wait for that.
Right.
I never really had that like thinking back in it. Like, oh, I mean, yes, like it's cool to watch those statue scenes that Omar was describing. Like I would rewatch those. Like the first act is like, it just works so well to set you up. But no, to me, again, how it concluded, it fell flat. And so I just keep thinking about like the ending, ambiguous and up to your interpretation, just didn't really hit for me. It's a good horror movie, I guess, in a way. Like, I don't even know if I would consider it horror, Omar. Like, I would consider it more like suspense or thriller in a way.
Yeah.
But, there's other horror movies that I think I would probably recommend over this one. So, not timeless for me, unfortunately. But those are our thoughts, guys, on Heretic. Let us know down below, either on YouTube, Spotify, now on Apple Podcasts too.
Whoa.
Let us know down below. What did you think about Heretic? Did you enjoy it? Who was your favorite performance out of the three main characters? And is it timeless for you? Would you guys rewatch it in the future? All right, guys, that has been episode number 95 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. Omar, got to say thanks again, man, for joining me on this episode. I cannot wait for episode 100, man.
That sounds like we should do something special for that.
Well, what should we do, man? Liz has been telling me that we should put up cameras, show our faces.
Maybe.
I don't know if I'm ready for that.
You know what you should do?
What we should do?
Get a soundboard.
Oh, that's
Start
right.
the show off with some claps and stuff. Some cheering.
I love it.
Like if we have an audience for the 100th episode.
Like there's actually people here cheering on our pros and cons.
It could be like, and you could add any sound. You could be like, oh, like.
You know what I would want to add to the soundboard?
What?
I would want to add famous movie clips. I've always thought about including like "Hold On to Your Butts" from Jurassic Park, different things from our favorite movies that we consider timeless.
That's good.
Something that we can think about.
Well, you have 5 episodes to think about.
It's a lot of pressure.
It's like what, 5 weeks, 4 weeks,
even less because we got a bunch of movies coming up that we're gonna have to review. So,
all right,
yeah, guys, appreciate you guys listening all the way through. It's been Omar and Victor Vasquez, episode number 95. Make sure to check out next week's episode as we cover a new film and we decide whether it is timeless after one viewing. All right, guys, thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you guys later.